In a recent study of people over the age of 70, it was found that 53% had difficulty going up or down the stairs. There are currently around 40 million people over the age of 65, and this population is rapidly increasing due to aging baby boomers. Inability to move up and down the stairs limits people in day-to-day life and takes away independence due to the need for supervision. At Hamper Helpers, we understand and we want to help. The Super Stair is designed to not only support the user, but also carry a payload, making it the ultimate stairway assistant. There are many reasons people have difficulty climbing the stairs. Abnormalities in a person's gait or walking pattern make it difficult. As people get older, gait disorders become far more common due to an increase in arthritis, hypertension, and many other disorders. Old age is not the only cause for gait abnormality. Gait abnormality can also include injury, musculoskeletal disorders, neurologic disorders, and many more. These conditions not only limit a person's ability to climb the stairs, but they also limit a person's ability to carry weight. There are multiple products currently on the market to address this issue. The cargo lift, as shown in the top left, carries a payload but does not support the user. The stair lift in the bottom left carries the user but does not allow the user freedom and is very expensive and difficult to install. The handrail supports the user but does not carry a payload. And mobility devices in the bottom right support the user, however, are not specific to the stairway and do not carry a payload.
For our customer requirements and engineering characteristics, we went ahead and found some products online as listed before. We went ahead and read through those reviews and pulled out information and needs of customers that pertain to our problem that we're trying to solve. For customer requirements, as listed on the left-hand side of these two charts, the ones that we thought were more important were the ones about carrying the total load, making it easy to put things in and out of, making it easy to use during operation, making it safe to use during operation, and having it be supportive of the user. For our engineering characteristics, as you can see on the right-hand side of these two charts as related to the customer requirements, we examined the customer requirements, brainstormed some functions and requirements of the products, and developed a list of engineering characteristics that we use to evaluate our concept moving forward. Some of the important ones here are turning radius and agility, the width of the product on the staircase itself, the payload ability regarding to motor torque, the user reaction force while supporting the user, and the contact area while supporting the user. So for our product functional decomposition here, we took into factor the customer requirements and engineering characteristics and evaluated all possible functions and processes occurring during product operation. Some of the important ones here include importing the payload and exporting the payload, regulating speed and torque for safety of use, and containing and transporting the payload while also supporting the user during operation. Now, we did have some constraints here. The only constraint that we were really super focused on was the stair code. As you can see on the right-hand side of the slide here, we really just kept these constraints in mind while moving forward for concept generation.
So for concept generation, we took into account the constraints and the functions, and we kind of boiled down our functions to top 3 of moving up and down stairs, supporting the user, and then the container, what it would look like, and how we would put things in and out. And so we did the 635 method on those things. We each came up with our 9 concepts for all 3. And then we came up with this initial morphological chart shown here. But then we realized that a lot of the different options would work with each other. And we were also missing some key functions such as controls, safety, and where it would attach. So such as on the railing or on the stairs or on the wall. And then we came up with our 10 finalized concepts. So those each had like more detailed designs, and we shared them with each other and kind of came up with all the different ideas that we'd all had and organized them. And it kind of brought up the complexity of overlap between functions. So then we created this more intense morphological chart to really understand how things work together. and we were able to then cut out some of our ideas that were either infeasible or didn't work with the other functions. And then we realized that supporting the user was mostly the limiting factor. So that's how we came up with our 5 final options by classifying them within the user support.
So after sorting through all of our initial concepts, we came up with our top 5 product concepts, and we compared these concepts relative to a datum in a pew chart. The datum we chose is the cargo lift, which is pictured in the upper right-hand corner, which can move a payload up and down the stairs, but does not support the user in any way. Our options 1 and 2 for concepts leave the railing cleared to be used as normal. However, option 1 is a motorized system that carries up the payload, and option 2 utilizes a manual hand crank. Option 3 is a non-motorized system where the user uses mechanical advantage to push up a hinging container that contains the load. Options 4 and 5 are both completely motorized. However, option 4 utilizes a stop and start system, while option 5 utilizes continuous motion. In our pew chart, we decided to keep all 7 of our decision criteria to evaluate our concepts. We did this because our product must integrate a variety of unique functions. So it's important to keep in mind all of these decision criteria. What really stood out after this pew chart was that the difference between our top 3 concepts was going to be based on contact area of support with user reaction force, and turning radius/agility. This let us know that designing to support the user was going to be more important than simply leaving the railing clear. Our pew chart showed us that options 3, 4, and 5 were going to best satisfy the user requirements. So our option 3, the customer uses these handles on a hinging container, and they use mechanical advantage to push this container up the railing. The problem with this option, though, is that it does not satisfy the customer requirement of being able to carry up the total load, but it will take up less space on the wall because this container can hinge up out of the way, and it'll most likely be a cheaper option. Option 4 is completely motorized, and the user uses buttons on handles of either side of an open container to control the motor. How this stop and start works is the user will start the motor and it'll move up 1 stair at a time, and then use a ratchet mechanism to lock, which will allow the user to then pull themselves up with the handle, and this will alleviate the strain on the motor. Option 5 is also completely motorized, but instead of using the stop and start method, it utilizes continuous motion, where the user uses squeeze pads to activate a motor, and then when they want the motor to stop, they release the pads. All 3 of these concepts utilize ratchet mechanisms so that the payload does not slide back down the steps when the user is going up.
The last step in our concept refinement process was the age pew chart. We moved forward with those final 3 design concepts and first evaluated the necessary design criteria. The results of this showed payload ability and user reaction force were the 2 most important criteria to consider moving forward. But following that, we also decided to take into account the user contact area of support and payload containment ability, as those were ranked as the 3rd and 4th most important design criteria. We then evaluated our product concepts against these 4 design criteria and found that option 4 and 5 were ranked equally high as our number 1 options. We saw this coming, but we're very happy to see that our refinement process showed this quantitatively. Moving forward, we now knew that this product must be motor-driven with direct user support. However, we still needed to decide on continuous motion versus the start and stop concept that we came up with. This decision came down to our desired method of user support and transportation, which was something that would require more in-depth research into user needs and external human factors.
Much was taken into consideration about human interaction with the product. So as a result, we decided that an altered version of Concept 5 was the best option. We chose this because we found it was necessary to have the choice between both continuous or stop and go motion in order to cover a wider range of customer needs. We're choosing an altered version of Concept 5 to move away from the squeeze pads, which provide potential safety issues. This altered design will include a control system that's easy to use, as well as emergency safety measures designed in. It will be simple and appealing to the user and will not disrupt the stairway in any way with protruding objects or loud noises. In our research, we found that a large portion of physically limited people rely on mobility devices to improve balance and effectively distribute weight. As a result, our handle is designed with this in mind, allowing the user to hold on with both hands, providing for maximum support and weight distribution. In addition, the handle is one size fits all and will provide support for users of all sizes. The payload container will be designed at a comfortable height above the ground with an arm's reach of all size users, allowing for easy and convenient load and unload of the payload. In addition, our product will have social impact in that it is intended to reward independence back to users with physically limiting conditions. A caretaker is often necessary, and the Super Stair will eliminate this need. It will also improve safety on the stairway and be easy to install and affordable, making it very convenient to the lives of our customers.
Using these human factors, we made a CAD model to show how functions can come together. We have a rail system which supports a carrying basket and a user handle glide. This is not the household railing, it's actually an 80-20 beam. The user handle is shown in dark blue and accounts for two different handle locations for designing for human factors. We have the top bar and the bottom bar. The bottom one is designed for going upstairs and the top is designed for going down. Through the magenta connection, the basket is able to rotate around the handle. This allows the user to operate it going up or down the stairs. The basket, although it's not shown, would have a net that would secure any objects inside of it. It would be secured by a magnet or zipper. The motor size is being sized just on the payload, and this is shown in figure 3. We have to remember that our target consumer is not someone who needs nor wants to be carried up the stairs. Since our product is geared towards a consumer that needs assistance moving objects on the stairway, but not to be completely carried themselves, the motor is simply sized on the payload. Since the motor is not able to carry a person, yet the payload and the user handles are connected, we have controls on the handle to start and stop the motor. We originally were going to use squeeze pads to control the motor, but we soon realized this was slightly flawed. If someone were to fall backwards, they would naturally squeeze those pads to catch themselves, and this would simply signal the motor to run. When the person grips the handle, it may allow it to slightly rotate around the pivot red axis. By rotating around this axis counterclockwise in figure 4, the motor would be triggered to run, and by rotating the handle clockwise, it would signal to stop and lock. Looking in figure 3, by locking this mechanism, the user is able to pull as hard as they want without spinning the motor backwards due to the inability of a spur gear to rotate a worm gear. These controls allow the user to walk up at their own pace and stop when needed. This reaches a wider consumer demographic. Taking a look backwards at our customer requirements, this model offers a supportive handle for the user to maintain good posture while gripping. It attaches to the railing by one beam and therefore has a small turning radius. It also features an open basket that is easy to put things in and take things out, since it's at waist level height and does not require the user to bend over or reach up. The lever mechanism to control the motor will be intuitive and easy to use during operation. It is able to carry the total load of the payload while safely allowing the user to support themselves due to the rigid connection to the railing. In conclusion, our whole process was slightly overwhelming and confusing. This is why we had to go back and make an Excel sheet to gather all of our ideas, and we cyclically went through them to decide which ones had flaws that we could not overcome. Our final design had strengths. It had strengths in addressing the needs of safely transporting items, taking minimal space on the stairs, having a potentially intuitive controls for motor engagement, employing a worm gear to move the payload and allow the user to support without moving the motor. One concern we'll be looking into more is control the motor and how to make it safeguarded. We want to avoid a design where the motor is not controlled correctly. Our current function satisfies our 3 main functions: supporting the user, traveling up and down the stairs, and containing the payload. In the future, we look to improve our ideas by looking into the handle design and how to best fit it for ergonomic factors, making sure our motor control is safe, researching more about motor sizing, and looking at alternatives to rotating the basket around the handle to go downstairs.